All right. I'm going to give a disclaimer this morning that I'm already in awakening mode, so the views that I present today may not necessarily be the views of God's house. Some of y'all never watch TBN. You don't know what I'm talking about, right? You know, TBN has people on that may believe a little bit different. Okay, never mind. All right, open up with me the book of Genesis. Look at your neighbor and say, it's all about the seed. So I'm going to go into a little bit, just a little teaser of some things we're going to go into in the 3-day awakening. Because, you know, when I get into this, it's so difficult for me to step out of it. And so, you know, we're learning things and hearing things that are really disrupting what we thought was the foundation of everything that we believe. And when a foundation gets shaken, how many knows the whole house is off? We don't have them down here, but in Oklahoma you have tornadoes. And you know, the wind and the tornadoes, you know, they can shake the house enough that, you know, if it shifts the foundation or cracks the foundation, you got to go in and shift and change everything, man. And what's happening is the foundation of religion that we have been given, it's got cracks all in it, but nobody wanted to recognize the cracks. And we've just lived with it. And so, you know, I think what it is God's coming to his house and going, that's not my foundation. That's man's foundation, and you know it has cracks in it. So what's happening is there's being revelation of Jesus Christ that's coming, and when you hear it, you go, I already know that. Okay, I'm gonna get another round. You don't already know it in your mind, you already know it in your spirit. So your spirit goes yes, and your brain goes run. Because it goes against everything that you've been taught. Are you with me? It was like me in the 5th grade. Because, you know, 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th, you know, I was taught 3 plus 3 is 6. And I was good with that, man. I had it down. I mean, I got this thing, man. And I get into 5th grade, and all of a sudden, they take the plus sign and turn it. And now 3 times 3 is 9. I'm jacked up. I'm like, no, what? No. You taught me for this amount of time that 3 plus 3 is 6. Now you're teaching me 3 times 3, no. And then, you know, when you get into 6th grade, they do something worse. They bring the alphabet into the multiplication system. And then it's 3a times 2y. I said, I'm out. They say, you're going to need this, you know, so we need to explain, you know, and then you get into, you know, trigonometry, and I'm just like, why? Can't you make it easier? Come on, is it just me? Okay. So what's happening is then you start going into the things of God, and you find out God don't multiply the way we multiply. And so now he's messing up my addition. Because with us, we got it set in stone that 1 plus 1 is 2. And God says, no, 1 plus 1 is 1. Because see, you know, you look at Adam and Eve and they're 2, but God says, no, it's Adam. You look at Jesus and the church and it looks like 2, but he says, no, they're 1. Because they're one spirit. You understand what I'm saying? So let me take you into a little bit of stuff here that's just going to mess with you just because I feel like messing with you today, because that's just in the mode that I'm in. And then when I'm in that mode and God wakes me up messing with me, then I'm going to mess with you. That's just the way it works. So it may be a little bit too deep for you, you know, but, you know, I'll throw out some floaties and stick them on your arms and just, you know, don't try to fight it, just tread water. All right? So God woke me up this morning and he started dealing with me about some stuff that I'm going into, and he started talking to me about this 1 plus 1 is 1. And all the way through, and I've taught you this at the beginning, when Adam, when he was made out of the dust of the ground, and then God put him in the garden, right? Are you with me? That then out of the ground, he made other trees. And I've told you, trees are not trees, trees are people. Come on, he said, you will be like a tree planted by the rivers of living water. So all the way through the book, trees represent people. Come on, a good tree brings forth good fruit. A bad tree brings forth bad fruit. Not talking about tree, talking about people. Okay, so you got Adam, and in Adam, he brings out other trees and puts them in the garden. But then he says, now, I'm going to do something crazy here. Also in the garden, in the midst of the garden, is the knowledge of good and evil, and it's a tree. But also in the midst of the garden is the knowledge, or the tree of life. Now, wait a minute, God. You're messing with me because you put a tree in the midst and you say, don't eat of it. And then you put the tree of life right next to it. Come on, if you're going to plant a garden and if you got a tree you don't want me to eat of, put it way over there by itself. Don't put it right next to something, because I might get confused someday and pull off the wrong fruit. Hello. But I've told you it's not talking about trees. So if it's not talking about trees, is he really talking about planting in a garden? Because the garden he's talking about is you. And he plants it in the midst of you. And remember, 1 + 1 is not 2, it's 1. So is it 2 trees in the midst, or is it 1? Because, I don't know. Because, Jesus is the tree of life. But yet Jesus came from the spiritual realm of the tree of life and put on an earth suit and took on the carnality, or the knowledge of good and evil. So the two become, so that he could become like you, so you could become like him. The problem is when in Genesis 1, 26, 27, 28, when he said, let us make man in our image, he was looking through the first Adam to the last Adam. And I've told you this, there's only been 2 men that ever live on the planet. Got quiet. Come on, the first Adam, all died. Second Adam, all lived, or last Adam, so there's only been 2 Adams. So if Jesus come to kill the first Adam, then now everybody lives through the last Adam. So Adam represented mankind. Now we're really getting crazy. 1 + 1 don't mean 1. 1 + 1 means billions. Oh, come on, are y'all with me? Do I need to give you? Are you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so you have to understand. He said we're going to make them, and he was looking through the first Adam to the second or the last, and he said we're going to make man, watch this, in our image and in our likeness. But image and likeness are 2, but they're 1. So when he makes man, he puts him in the garden, and then he eats of the knowledge of good and evil. Then he's got to put him out of the garden, and it doesn't say that he put the man out of the garden in his image. He said we had to put man out of the garden because now he's become like us. Okay. Oh, you have to understand, God created all things. All things were created by him and for him. So he puts him out because when he ate, he became like him, knowing knowledge of good and evil. Because does God know knowledge of good and evil? Of course he does, but he is a spirit being and has the power over knowledge of good and evil because he can't even be tempted by evil. How do you follow me? God has never been tempted until he put on a man suit. So even though man became the likeness of him, he was separated from the image of him. So that's why he said, I give my only begotten son. Because he said, Jesus is the express image of the Father. So the express image of the Father came here. The 2 become 1. So the Spirit comes to live in the carnal. And to live by the Spirit, because by the Spirit is life. Every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. To live by the carnal is death. Are you with me? See, I'm about to do a series on Wednesday night starting in April on hell. And we're going to go through this, and it's going to rock you because you got to start asking questions. We're in a time that you got to ask questions. Who created hell? Because the first 6 days of creation, I don't see it. Well, God created all things. Okay, well, we live in Houston and they put up a rocket to the moon. Did God create that or did man? So God's creation created something. So I'm here to tell you God did not create hell, man did. And see, what you don't think is hell and death are two, but hell and death are one. That's why he went to hell and got the keys of death and hell, because the two are one. Because, shut up. Death means separation from God. When you're separated from God, you're living in hell. Because you're living in the carnal nature governed by the five senses. So what you constantly do is live by judgment. You live by judgment that's telling you what's good and what's bad, but it's from a carnal nature, and even what you say is bad ends up good, and what you say is good can turn out bad. Because it's carnal, and what is carnal will ultimately bring forth death, which is separation from the Spirit, the mind of God, the Spirit of God. It cannot do anything but bring forth death. Why? Because it's in the seed. And the seed can only reproduce after it's... Are y'all out there? Can we just go into Thursday? Ooh, I don't know if I can wait. So let me give you some scriptures for about 10 minutes, and then let me preach. Can I do that? All right, so Genesis 3. And in Genesis 3:15, we hear it's all about the seed, and this is after they ate, and it's going to be between Satan's seed and the woman's seed. That's where all hostility lays. First prophecy in the Bible right there. Are you with me? So let me just make sure you know this, because if you can get this in your foundation, it'll start to change how you see things. And so you have to understand Satan's seed. Let's look in Genesis 3 verse 1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field. And the Lord God, and he said. Everybody say, and he said. So Satan's seed is what he says. I'm going to say it again. It's not an apple on a tree. Satan's seed is what he says. You following me? Let's just make sure. Matthew chapter 16. It's a very familiar passage. We hit it all the time. And it's the passage where Jesus is asking, who do men say that I am? You out there? And some say Elijah, some say John the Baptist, all this stuff. And then Peter says, you are the Christ. Okay, so when he said that you are the Christ, he heard from the spiritual realm. Because Jesus said, you didn't get this from flesh and blood. You didn't get this from the carnal mentality. You didn't get this from the knowledge of good and evil. Because it can't bring forth life. It can only bring forth death. He said, you got this from my daddy. And this is how I'm going to build the church. I'm going to build the church on men and women hearing from my daddy, hearing revelation of who I am. And when you hear from the inside to the outside of who I am, that's how I'm going to build. And when I build from the inside to the outside, the gates of hell cannot prevail against that. So what's the gates of hell? Well, later on, you'll go over there and you'll see where Jesus starts telling them what's going to happen. He's got to die and all this stuff. And Peter brings him over here and says, I rebuke you, God. Can you imagine Peter's rebuking God, the creator of the universe, has created all things. And he shows you what hell is when he looks at him and says, I rebuke you, Satan, because you mind the things of man. So man's thoughts become man's words. Y'all still good? Man's thoughts become man's words. And he says, you know what? That's the gates of hell. So where does hell come from? Out of man. Okay. Honey, I'm trying to tell you, you're creating your own torment. And religion just makes it worse, trying to get you to get out of it, but giving you the same stuff to try to get out. That's what religion does. It tries to be like God without God. So it gives you the wrong words that don't have spirit and life. They're in carnality, connected to the five senses. And when they're connected to the five senses, oh, this is how I feel. Then you're living by the left side of your brain. Because the left side is your emotions. It's the carnal side. That's why he said when you want to cast, what y'all doing? We fishing. Well, I know you fishing because you ain't caught nothing. Yeah. Now cast your net on the right side. Not the other side, right side. What's he saying? Now you're going to have to listen by the Spirit because you've been doing things by the flesh and you ain't caught nothing. But now you're going to cast it on the right side. What does that mean? We fished all night. We're tired. That's stupid. But are you going to listen to the Spirit or are you going to listen to the carnality? Yeah. John chapter 8. Ooh, it's going to get gooder and gooder. John chapter 8, verse 31. Now, we have this, can I just tell it to you? Okay. We have this passage and Jesus is confronting the Jews and he gets down to here and he starts telling them who he is and they don't like what he's saying. And then in verse 31, it says, then Jesus said to those Jews who believed him. So these are not just regular Jews. They're not the ones trying to kill him at this point. These are the ones that are kind of opening up to who he is, okay, maybe he is, let's check this out, right? And they were believing things he was saying. So he goes into this and says, if you abide in my word, then you are my disciples, because your word is your fruit. Your word is your power, because your word comes from your thoughts, and your thoughts come from the very identity of who you are. So if you can't change your thoughts, you can't change your words. If you can't change your words, you can't change your fruit. Because whatever you release out your mouth, you eat the fruit thereof. And out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So see, we don't want to go into your mind and change it. We want to go into your heart and change. Because when we change your heart, your mind changes. Because when you understand in your heart that you have the mind of Christ, you don't have to live out of the left side. You don't have to live out of carnality. You can do exactly what Jesus did, and then every day you can live by the Spirit, which makes you free from the law of sin and death. But we cannot be free from the law of sin and death when we keep going back into the law of sin and death to find out what we did. You don't go backwards to go forwards. I know a secret. You want me to jump ahead and come back? Jacob looked like he was going backwards because he went back to where he came from. But in going back to where he came from, he did not look back to what he did to get free. Jacob had to see who Israel was. And Israel was the one on the inside of him who God said will rule. But God said Israel will rule while they were still in the womb. But a plan was devised to get Jacob the blessing and the birthright in the carnal thinking. But see, you will never get free of your past until you see your future. And your future is who you've always was before the foundation of the world. He was never Jacob, he was always Israel. But until you can see out of this realm into that realm who God created you to be, you see into the future of who you are that sets you free from who you thought you was. That's why no matter what I give you and how I give it to you, you going into a wrestling match. And you ain't wrestling with the devil. You wrestling with you. You wrestling with who you think you are compared to who God says you are. Because who you thought you was is a deceiver and a manipulator, but God said, no, that's not who you are. You are Israel. You are one that prevails. You are one that judges and rules with God. That's why we have to deal with this doctrinal system that keeps you in a place of complacency, thinking you can't change anything and get you out of here. That's a slap to the face of Jesus Christ that died on the cross and finished it. Because he said, I come to bring you life here, abundant here. I come to bring heaven here. And we, in a religiosity of a mindset to go, well, he didn't really do it. We got to get out of here. Things are just getting bad. Depends on what you see. Because if you see, then you're free. Okay. Moses did it like this. He said, let me send 12 in. And he said, let me go send them into the land and let them see what it looks like. Now, anytime God sends you in to see something, he already knows what it is. He's not looking for information. He wants to know, how do you see it? So they come back and 10 of them go, you know what? The land's good, just like God said. But we're grasshoppers. Because there's giants. So in the midst of that, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I am a grasshopper because that's how the giant sees me. So how you think the giant sees you then becomes your reality. But two had a different spirit. He said, oh, them giants, they bread. They're lunch. That's what they were saying. They just are lunch. Because we are well able to take this land. Oh, so how do you see Houston? Oh, it's jacked up. It's got this. It's got that. It's got that. Get out of the carnal. Get out of your five senses. Get over into the spirit and see what God says about Houston. Because when you see, then you're carrying freedom, not only for you, but to release it everywhere you go. What is happening on the planet right now is manifestation of sons and daughters are coming forth. Why? Because they're not seeing from the carnal realm, they're seeing from the spirit realm. And they're seeing who they always were created to be. I promise you, when you start to operate in who you always created to be, sin is no longer a problem. The reason sin is a problem is because we're bored. Why? Because religion gives you the same old thing promising you something that never comes. And so you're bored going, well, we can't change anything. What are we going to do? But I promise you, when you start living by this water, you live by this bread, you ain't bored. You can't get enough. The more you eat, the hungrier you get. The more you get, the more you want to give away. All right. Still trying to preach. So this is what he does. He goes to them and he says, y'all think y'all know who I am. He said, but what makes you free is my word. They're arguing that they're descendants and they've never been bound. They're free. Verse 37, I know that you're Abraham's descendants, but you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. See, the word has no place because you think you already know. And if you think you already know, there's no entrance for the kingdom to get in you because the kingdom is illustrated through his word. That's why Jesus showed up and said, you have heard it said, but I say. As long as you're listening to what you heard, you can't listen to what is being spoken. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said, if you were Abraham's children, then you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who's told you the truth, which I heard from God. Abraham did not do this. You do the deeds of your father. Okay. So let's look at who the father is. Verse 42, Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me. For I proceed forth and came from God, nor I have come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? You do not understand my speech because you are not able to listen to my word. You're not able to listen to my word because I'm not your daddy. You are your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there's no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is the liar and the father of it. So when you hear something and you believe the lie and now truth is hitting you, as long as you hold on to the lie, there's no entrance for the truth to get into you. Well, I believe the same thing for 30 years. You're in a lie. Sorry. Okay. Moving right along. Matthew 12. Just want to get off that one real quick. Matthew 12. Verse 33, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, that'd be Satan's seed. How can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasure of hearts bring forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of hearts bring forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give an account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Now, let me tell you something. God is not talking about every word that you give, that one day you're going to stand before him, and then he's going to judge you according to what you said. He's not saying that at all. He said, I didn't come to judge you. I didn't come to condemn you. I come to set you free. What he's saying is, if you want to live by that carnal tree, if you want to live by that carnal nature, then you're going to be judged by every word that you give out, not after you die, but while you're on the earth. Did I not tell you not to judge? Because with the same judgment that you give, it will come back and render on you. Come on, that's not God judging you, it's you judging you. It's because you're speaking out words of death. You're speaking out words of anger. You're speaking out words of jealousy. And then you're tormented wanting God to set you free. He said, I can't set you free if you won't let go of the tree. Because as long as you got to figure it out, as long as you got to find that punishment, as long as you got to find your vindication, as long as you got to go in there and go, well, I was done wrong. I know you were done wrong. Everybody has been. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying come out of agreement with it. See, I feel we really don't know what love is. Because love has been so watered down. But you know, the church, you know, they know what love is. Let me tell you something, in the love of the Lord. No, that's just your nice way of judging the situation. There's the mouth of the intercessor and the mouth of the accuser. Which one are you? Because everybody's got an opinion and they're like, never mind. Keep my mouth shut, right? A perfect man is one that can what? Moving right along. Romans 8, verse 6. For to be carnally minded is death, but he's spiritually minded is life and peace. The carnal mind is an enemy against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor can it be. What's he saying? There's no way that you can think from this mind and these emotions. Hello. And for the five senses and please God. It's not possible. Why? Because nothing God says makes sense to the carnal mind. It is not subject to the law of God, nor can it be. I don't care how you patty cake it. I don't care how you roll it up. I don't care how you serve it. It's still going to produce death because it's coming from death. Because death can only produce death. Hello, my wife did it very well. If you're not willing to let go of eating from that tree of the five senses, guess what? It's always going to be about how you feel. Well, you know, they made me feel like that. Well, they'll make you feel like that again. Well, what does God say when they make you feel like that? Love them. Bless them. Do good to them. Oh, brother, I ain't doing that, then you ain't in the love of God. Oh, watch this. Because see, how you see your God determines how you are. So the way you're acting actually is an illustration of how you see God. Because what you look at, you actually become. So if you have a real identity of who God is and you really see him as a loving father, you cannot be anything else but love. But if you see him as a judgmental, going to whoop you, going to pounce on you, going to get you, going to judge you, going to barbecue you, then that's what you do to people. So what you do to people is a realization of how you see your God. Well, you know he's a God of judgment. Mercy triumphs judgment. So why in your mistakes are you so hard on everybody else? None of y'all, just people watching on there. So we see all the way through here, there's a bunch more, but all the way through here we see that the seed of Satan is words. Are you okay? And then let's see what the woman's seed is. I'm not going to go through each one of these because I don't have time, but Matthew 4:4 talks about you live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. So what's the woman's seed? It's the word. And John 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Okay. Come on, he's had a plan from the beginning. You need to get understanding of what the plan was. If you don't understand the plan, you'll never understand the purpose. If the plan's off, the purpose is off. The reason the church doesn't understand the purpose is because they don't understand the plan. It's always been about the seed. listen, a Gentile understood this when he came to Jesus, and his own people didn't even know who he was. And a Gentile centurion came to him. He said, I got a servant that's sick. You know, will you pray for him? And Jesus said, yeah, I will. He said, I'll go. He said, no. You don't have to go. I know who you are. Just speak the word. Because you're the word, and the word confirms the word. So if you are healing and you speak the word of healing, then I know he'll be well. Jesus said, not such great a faith in all of Israel. Because the word confirms the word. In Matthew 13:23 is the parable of the seed and the sower. And we know, what is he sowing? He's sowing seed. What is seed? It is the word. Come on, goes all the way through there and tells you what comes up in you and chokes out the word. Thorns and thistles. What's the thorns and thistles? It's the curse of Adam. The ground will produce for you thorns and thistles. That's the curse. He said, but those that hear my word and receive it, they'll have 30, 60, 100. Are y'all out there? John 6, verse 63, he said, let me tell you what I am. He said, my words, they're spirit and life. He said again, they're spirit and life. So if any words bring fear, shame, condemnation, guilt, they're not God's words. Now, I'm not saying the person is bad. I'm just saying his words are wrong. Come on, you understand what I'm saying? You okay? See, it's never a bad experience if you learn from the experience. Because if you learn from the experience, you understand God uses all things and works them together, those that love God. So you're not bad about the experience that you went through, because you should have learned something through it to make sure you don't do it. So if something was done to you and you learn from that, you bless the person, hate the sin, and then go after the sin that's in somebody else that's going to damage them. But you never get mad at the person. That's called maturity. Okay, now can I preach? All right, so let's go through this seed thing. 2 seeds. All the way through, we see these seeds. We see Cain and Abel. We see Cain on the left side, producing from the ground his thoughts. Hello. Producing and bringing an offering to the Lord. We see Abel bringing something God created. He received Abel's offering and not Cain's. And then in the rejection of the offering, you see the true identity of where Cain is coming from, that he's jealous of his brother, and then he kills him. Why? Because the seed only can produce death. So if it's in you and you don't deal with it, death's coming. Do you get that? How about Noah? In Noah's time, we see that continually all men's heart were continually wicked, carnal. But Noah found grace. Come on, Noah moved into something in a new covenant principle and found grace. When all of the earth, their hearts were continually wicked, self-imposed, looking for what benefits me. Are you out there? And so then we see Noah, he has 3 sons. And in the 3 sons, I mean, you got to give Noah a break, man. He's on his boat all this time. He's with all these animals. He's with his family, shut up, can't get out, can't watch no ESPN. Right? I mean, finally he hits ground again. What's he do? Blessed the man, what's the first thing he does? I'm planting a vineyard, guys. I'm going to chillax, right? And so what happens here, there's an uncovering that happens in his tent, and 2 of the boys go in and cover, and 1 boy exposes. And so you see the blessing of Shem and Japheth, but you see the cursing of Ham. You see the spiritual side that covers, you see the carnal side that exposes. Are you following me? And so we take that down, and we see God, and we see his nature in this. He goes and he finds this man on the earth, and if he finds him, and he says, I'm going to make covenant with him, and he says, Abram, a Chaldean, worshiping the sun and the moon. Let me show you who I am. He said, this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. And I'm going to make a promise to you that's going to affect the whole planet. You're blessed. And in blessing, I'm going to bless you. Not only am I going to bless you, I'm going to bless your seed. And in your seed, all the nations are going to be blessed. I'll take that prophecy. Can you imagine him going, do what? I was just out here talking to the sun. See, if you want to see how great God is, you really want to see God eye to eye? In August, go outside and look straight up at the sun. And if you can't look at that, you don't want to see him face to face. Because if you can't handle his ambassador to the planet, you might not want to see him with your physical eyes. Just might want to think about that. If you can't stand to look in his created substance, okay. So what happens? This is what he does. This is crazy, man. I mean, it's crazy, it's crazy, it's crazy. He goes into this thing, and he says, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. He says, I'm going to take Abraham, I'm going to bless him, and he starts doing all this stuff and has this encounter and makes this covenant with him. But remember, not only did Noah curse Ham, really he didn't curse Ham, he cursed Ham's descendants. He said, Canaan will be cursed. Okay, so remember where the curse came in. The curse came into the knowledge of good and evil. It comes into the carnal mind. It comes into self. Abram's over here minding his own business, but he's looking for God. Says, he's worshiping something, right? And God says, I see something in him I can work with. So he comes to him, makes a covenant with him, makes a promise with him. And then after he makes the promise with him, what does he do? He says, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the blessing and take the cursing and add the cursing to the blessing. Is that what he said? Abram and Ham. And named him Abraham. Because he promised him he's going to give him the land of Ham, which is going to be Canaan. And he's going to take Canaan land that's going to be cursed and turn it into a promised land. Oh, y'all think I'm talking about the land. I'm trying to tell you who you are. You were cursed in Adam, and God said, I'm going to come, take your curse in my name, I'm going to be a man, take your curse, and what was cursed, I'm going to cause it to be blessed. And you're going to be the promised land. So you have a part of your brain, the pineal part of your brain. Oh, pineal, that's where Jacob had an encounter. Oh my gosh. We might ought to go there. And then there's another part of your brain. One part of your brain flows with a milky substance, it's white. And another part of your brain flows with another substance that's gooey and looks like honey. And he said, I'm going to take you into a land that flows with milk and honey. But see, religion takes you into the land and going, oh, we can't possess this. It's too big. There's giants out here. There's rape out here. There's molestation out here. There's crime out here. You got to come get us. But two of a different spirit go into the land of milk and honey, and they see something, and they change their mind, and they don't live by the carnal. They live by the spirit, and they say, oh, them giants, I want the biggest giants. I want that land, because this is a land that flows with milk and honey. This is my inheritance. This is my promise. They can't stop me. They're just lunch. But it flows right here. That's why he says, metanoia, change your mind. But to change your mind, you got to be of a different spirit. To be of a different spirit, you got to see. You got to see what he sees and not what you see. That's why he said, those that have ears, let them hear. Those that have eyes, let them see. What's he saying? Can you hear my word? Can you see what I'm seeing? Oh my God, Elijah and Elisha, he served him. He served him in the natural all this time. Crosses a river. He said, what do you want from me? He said, I want what you got. I want double what you got and what I got. That's my boy right there. I'm not just satisfied with that. Now, I want double you and me. He said, well, if you can see me when I go. He said, you've asked a hard thing. I can't give it to you. But if I've trained you well, if you've walked with me, if you learned from me, if you walked underneath what I've walked in, and you see what I see, then when he takes me, it belongs to you. Oh, you think I'm talking about Elijah and Elisha, and I'm talking about Jesus in you. When he takes him, now it belongs to you. And what are we doing? Waiting for him to come back. He said, do you not understand what I left on the inside of you? The Christ never left the planet. The Christ is on the inside of you. It is the seed. And so Abram, man, he got the blessing. He adds it to him. God tells him, said, now listen, you ain't going to see it, but your seed's going to see it. He said, but I want to tell you something. Abram's going down. Now, wait a minute. I gets over here in the carnal. Come on, I'm trying to encourage you because this is what we do. We get over here and say, well, I ain't got no seed. But did I not make you a promise? Well, I know you made me a promise, but I don't have a seed. And so instead of believing God, he believes a woman, which is his wife. And she comes to him and says, no, you know, you got no seed. I can't give you no seed. I'm old. I'm dried up. Come on, take my. Abram, oh, I don't want to. Twist my arm. Okay, I will. And I really don't want to. I'm going to do it for you. You're the one that encouraged me to do it. I don't want to do it. Now, what he did, he got over here in the carnal thinking. And anytime you get in the carnal thinking, which is death, you're going to produce death. So he produced Ishmael. And then after it got all up in years, and he finally said, I'm done. And Sarah already said she done. Adam said, okay, I'm done now. And God says, okay, now I can do it. Now I'm going to give you a seed. Right? And Sarah laughs. And she gets pregnant. And then the boy starts coming up. And then Ishmael, the cursed, starts mocking the blessed. And then the woman that said, hey, he's here because you're the one told me to go do it, said, now put him out of the house. And Abram's going, look, he's here because of you. I didn't want to do it. You made me do it. He's my boy. How can I put it? Put him out. Why? Flesh cannot live with spirit. You can't have law and grace. Oh, it's greasy grace. That's the only kind of grace there is. You can't have grace and go back over in a little bit of law. You got to put it out. I'm trying to get to Jacob. I don't know if I'm going to get there. And so he produces Ishmael, and Isaac comes up, and then what happens in the midst of Isaac and Jacob, and then Abraham's, okay, I'm going to put him out. God says, hey, I'll bless that son. I'm going to bless him because you did it. But with me and you only got one son. Because I don't recognize what you did in the flesh. Oh, somebody better hear. That's what grace is. Grace says I don't recognize your behavior. That's why religion hates it. Quit preaching that. You can't change anybody by grace. How you been changing them with the law, baby? The only way you're going to change is by grace. That's how you got changed in the first place. And if you don't embrace grace, you will never defeat this. Because grace is the power to overcome the carnal. Are you with me? And so then he gets rid of him, and God says, now give me the one I gave you. What? No, wait a minute, I got rid of my other boy, now you want my boy? Come up and make a sacrifice. Now, how could Abraham do that? Because when Abraham's Lot got in trouble, which he really looked at him as his son, not his nephew, he went to take care of him. And he went to battle, and he conquered. And the kings tried to make him rich. He said, I ain't taking nothing you can give me. And when he does that, Melchizedek comes riding. You know God's a cowboy. From Oklahoma, but he moved to Texas. And Melchizedek, that's Jesus coming with wine and bread. The covenant of the new covenant comes in encounters with Abraham. That's why he told him in John chapter 8, Abraham saw my day. But before Abraham, I was. So Abraham has an encounter with Melchizedek, and Melchizedek, Jesus tells him the plan of the ages. He tells him the cross. He tells him he's the only begotten son that's going to sacrifice himself. So you can imagine he's heard the gospel story. So when God asked him to give him what he didn't have before God spoke, oh, you don't have a problem giving God something that you didn't have unless he spoke it. Oh, you think you got it. That's why you can't give it. Oh, you think you did it. That's why it's not growing. Because God always asks back for what he gave you to see if you're into what he gave you or if you're into him. So Abraham says, okay, we going up, stay here, me and the boy, we will return. There was no doubt in his mind. People look, oh, that's crazy. God will never say to do that. Oh, yeah, God will. Why? Because he don't operate in the carnal. He knew what he was going to do. But Abraham didn't know what he was going to do. He knew he was coming back with the boy, but he didn't know how. And the incredible thing is the promise just laid there. The promise never fights. He didn't have to tie him to the altar. The promise wasn't trying to get away. He was trusting his daddy. And as soon as he pulls the knife back, the spirit world says, hey, I will provide myself a sacrifice. Didn't I not tell you when I met you as Melchizedek who I was? I don't need you to sacrifice it. I'm going to sacrifice it. Okay. I got 10 minutes to get into Jacob. Got any encouragement? So Abraham bursts something here. He has Isaac and he gets old. And he gets old and he's about to die and he calls his old servant in, and his old servant represents the Holy Spirit. And he brings the Holy Spirit and he says, now I want you to make me a promise. He says, stick your hand up underneath my thigh. This is very intrusive. Because the place he's asking him to stick his hand is touching his seed. So I don't know if y'all can handle this. He's touching the place of where the promise was made, and the promise was made to Abraham's seed. He said, now make me a promise that he don't go marry one of them. I got to get one in my house. And the Holy Spirit says, okay, we're gonna do good on this. And you know what happens. And Rebecca shows up and the whole thing with the camels, and they get married, right? You okay? Yeah. And so when they get there, this is what happens. And then they get together, then they have some children. And these children, they're gonna have Jacob and Esau, twins. And one's going to represent the flesh and one's going to represent the spirit. They look both fleshly to me. That's why all died in Adam. And Jacob is they call him the heel grabber because he's trying to come out first. And so they come out, and God already told Mama the younger one will rule. You know what Israel means, don't you? God will rule. So God's word's already been spoken. Okay. And so what happens in the midst of this, they grow up, and Jacob feels inferior to Esau because Esau's a daddy's boy. He's a hunter. Jacob's a mama's boy. So here they're growing up together, and they're doing this. And so Jacob is smarter than Esau and waits till Esau doesn't have any meat, and he's a cooking. And he shenagles him out of his birthright by a pot of porridge. Right? And then not only that, then they devise a plan that's not enough. I got to get the blessing. So Mama says, this is what we're going to do. We're going, Daddy's eyes are getting dim. We're going to get a plan. We're going to get a couple goats. We're going to feed them goats, and we're going to take that skin and put it on you, and I want you to go in. And when he goes in to get the blessing of Isaac, Isaac says, who are you? Oh, this is important. Don't miss this, because that's what God's saying right now. Across the planet, this is the words, who are you? And Jacob said, because when you don't know who you are, you always try to be somebody else. Because you think if you can be somebody else, you can get the blessing. If I can be a Benny Hinn, I'll get the blessing. And he goes over and he won't get too close because Daddy may not can see, but he can touch me. He can feel. He said, you feel like Esau, but you smell like Jacob. Hello, 5 senses kicking in. But he gives him the blessing. Are you with me? And when he gives him the blessing, Esau gets home and he's mad and he goes, let me tell you something. When Daddy dies, I'm killing you. So Mama once again says, okay, now you got to go. You got to go to my brother's house, go to Laban. And so he goes to Laban and he starts working with Laban. And when he gets there, the first thing he does is he finds love. He sees Rachel. Okay. So he sees Rachel and he says, I'll make you a deal. I'll work 7 years, which is complete. And then he didn't give him Rachel, he gives him Leah. And then after he gets Leah, he says, okay, now, you've done this to me. And he didn't argue too much because remember, he's a what? He's a manipulator himself. So now what he created, he's reaping from. I say, quit blaming God for what you're reaping from when you're the one who created it. Because reaping and sowing is man's law, not God's. Are y'all out there? Am I going too fast? And so what he does in this, he says, okay, I'll work another 7 years, which is completeness, which actually shows you the unity of both sides of the mind, the carnal and the spiritual. Because if you can take the spiritual over the carnal's not bad. It can turn what's bad into good. See, the soul is not bad. It's just in the middle. So whether it's fed by the flesh or fed by the spirit, it can go either way. Feelings are not bad. They just are, which way you want to feel. All right, so he's doing good, everything. And Laban, now he's tricked him with the wife. Then he tricks him with his wages. Are you with me? And so then God comes to Jacob and gives him a dream. And in the dream, he gives him something that's supernatural. And he shows him how to create a stock. He said, I want you to get these trees and I want you to slice these trees and I want you to put them at the watering troughs. And when the flock comes, and when the flock, they're in heat. And when they're in heat, when they start to get bred, I want them looking at these trees. And whatever they look at, they'll produce. So it's the principle of whatever you see is what you'll birth. What you see impregnates you and brings out in the physical what you... And so he told Laban, I'll make a deal with you, all the spotted and the speckled and the streaked, I'll take them. And Laban's going, oh yeah, I ain't got many of them. But he's got a supernatural word. He changed the DNA of the animals. But it was never about the animals. God was about changing the DNA of Jacob. So then he blesses him, and then he comes to him and says, okay, Jacob says, God says it's time to go return to the land of your fathers, and it'll go well with you. Now remember what the carnal told him. I'm going to kill you when daddy dies. And now God says, the Spirit shows up and says, go back to the land of your fathers, and I'll be with you. It'll go well with you. Come on, are you with me? So then he has this encounter, and in this encounter, he has an encounter at God's house. That's why you need to come here. Bethel, house of God, or God's house. But here's the sad thing. This is what I was talking about at the beginning. He has this encounter, and there's a ladder going up to heaven. And the ladder is his DNA. And angels are going up and down his DNA. They're ascending and descending. And God's at the top. Because God represents the spiritual, Jacob represents the carnal. And God's saying, I want to change your DNA to Israel. Of who I call you from the spiritual, not who you are in the carnal. But to do this, I got to change your DNA. And he wakes up, and when he wakes up, oh my gosh, God was here, and I did not know it. Now wait a minute, what do you mean he did not know it? This is what he's saying. I did not engage it. Let me say that again. He missed an opportunity. Are you hearing me? He did not engage the spiritual encounter that God gave him. But he anoints one rock. Everybody say one rock. And he anoints it there, and he makes a vow to God. Okay? Now I'm jumping ahead, and I don't have time to bring it all together. But then he comes back, and he's at Peniel. How he sees, how he thinks. The pineal gland, spelt the same way, word, the same way as Peniel, the place he is. Are you with me? And here God shows up. And who does God show up as? Israel. He shows up as who he says Jacob is. And he said he wrestled with a man. You wrestle not with flesh and blood. Oh my gosh, am I too deep? See, the real you is the spiritual you. He was wrestling with the identity of who he is. And this time, he's not going to miss the engagement to change his DNA. This time, a changing of a mind, a repentance, a metanoia means I'm not going to see myself the way I used to see myself. I'm not going to be that person anymore, because when my DNA changes, my behavior changes. Are you with me? And he wrestles with him until the sun goes up. And what does he say? He says, let me go. Watch this. Who are you? Oh, So he said, what's your name? He didn't say Esau. He said, I am Jacob. You know what he was saying? I'm a manipulator. I'm a deceiver. I'm one that's operating like this. He said, now I can help you because you're operating in truth. He said, not anymore. He said, let me go. He said, what's your name? And then what'd he do? He slapped him. Oh, yeah, I get it. I don't have time to go into it. It actually means the hollow of his thigh, he slapped his seed and made him a promise. It's the same promise he made Abraham, that Christ's seed was going to come through this. And he says, you're going to limp. The limp is your flesh. The limp wasn't a natural limp. It's representing something. Because God says, where you're weak, I'm strong. What's he saying? I made you a promise. Where you're weak, I'll come strong in the place that you're weak. I'm making you a promise because my seed came to the planet, paid the price, overcame it, now lives on the inside of me. Don't tell me you can't do it. I made you a promise. It's all about the seed. 2 more minutes? Can you get 2? He makes him this promise. He hits him. And Jacob now leaves as Israel, but his name doesn't change in the Bible. Matter of fact, when God shows up to Moses, he said, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So this name that he has is something personal. This identity that he has is something between him and Israel. Come on, are you getting this? Revelation tells you he gives you a name that nobody else can give you, a new name. So now he's still got to go meet Esau. So I used to think at this that he was scared when he was going to go meet Esau, so he's sending all the gifts out in front of him. God said, no, he wasn't scared. I changed his DNA. Esau's whole life, he had stolen from Esau. Now he can bless. Because now he's not in competition. Now there's no more jealousy over the identity because I'm not Jacob. I'm Israel. And I have wrestled with God and have prevailed. Israel has come out of Jacob. That word in the hip, in the sinew, in the socket actually means to curve. It actually means a rib. As in connection that he took Eve out of Adam. And the identity of really who he was is Israel. And he took Israel out of the side of Jacob. Watch this. And when he gets to Esau, Esau don't want to kill him no more. Because now he has favor with God and man. Because he has prevailed as Israel. Watch this, and I'm done. We'll go more into it in 3 days. And so what does he do? He comes to Jacob. Jacob don't want to kill, or Esau don't want to kill him. What does he say? Man, I don't need this. I'm good. Watch this. And he fell on his neck and kissed him. Why? Because the neck connects the head and the body. Christ is the head of the body. Because Israel saw himself the way Christ saw him. Come on, he's no longer Jacob, he's Israel. And it caused even his enemy to kiss him on his neck. Because what changes in the mind changes in the body. What changes in the body shifts your DNA. Are you with me? Stand up. Sorry, I got about 3 more hours on that, but what you think is 2 is 1. So we know Jesus came and lived in that body. And what happened? The two became one. And he brought the carnal under the subjection of the Spirit. And then left and put that same Spirit in you. Just says, now you do the same thing that I did, but now multiplied all over the planet. And everywhere your feet go, take dominion. Take authority. How? With words. But your words won't change until your thoughts change, and your thoughts won't change till your heart changes. And here's the good news. You can't change it. But I know one that can. So you just got to want to. And if you'll let him, he'll change that heart. And when that heart changes, the thoughts change. When the thought changes, the words change. So Father, I bless your people today. God, I thank you that Houston is changing. This is our city. Belongs to us. We will not leave it for another generation. We will not be hard-hearted. We will not be stiff-necked. We will listen to your voice. And we will see unity in this city. We will see your presence once again. And we will see the visitation, but it will not come on us. It will come out of us. God, it's your sons and daughters, and you have planted us here for this time and this season. And we embrace your awakening to the true identity of sons and daughters, that the world may know that there is one God. So, Father, I bless them in Jesus' name. Amen. You are released.